So similarly, imagine there was a variable declared called as v underscore balance, and this variable was declared like number of 7 comma 2, and I want to create another variable with the same data type as that of a v underscore balance. So I'm creating another variable v min balance, and its data type should be exactly same as that of v underscore balance. So what I will do, I'll write v underscore balance percentile type, and we can initialize it there in then itself. Okay, got the point? So what is v and percentile type? It is an attribute, PLSQL attribute, which helps us to declare variables, PLSQL variables, with the same data type as that of the column present in the database or any previously declared variable. So now coming on for the types of blocks that exist in our PLSQL. As we have already discussed, if we don't have again reusability of the code which we have already written, if we don't have any purpose to use it in the near future, then we will not save it with a particular name. We will not give it a name and save that particular program permanently in the memory. For example, in the previous part, we saved that particular program in the notepad file, right? But I already showed you another way of writing the program, which was directly typing on the SQL command prompt. Correct? While directly typing on the SQL command prompt, I have typed it and I have executed. And my program will be valid only and only until it was executed. Once it has got executed and given the result, our program will be taken out from the memory and will not be saved. But sometimes we will like to save it in the form of a procedure or a function. So if you are trying to save it in the form of a procedure or a function, then you will give a name to that particular procedure or a name to that particular function. When you are not giving any name, no need of any procedure or function keywords over there. Just use the declare section and begin your program. But when you are giving a name, either you have to give with regard to the procedure or the function or the trigger, any of these three, okay, or the packages, something like that. So most commonly we will use either the procedure or the function. So what is the way in which we will give the name to them? We'll write procedure, name that we wanted to give for storing it permanently in the memory is, and then we will declare any variables if we have here, and then within begin we'll write the statements, logic of our procedure, and if we are having any exception, we will write the exception handling mechanism, and we'll use end for closing of our procedure definition. Similarly, for the function, we will have function as a keyword, name that we wanted to use for storage representation. Then return is a keyword, what type of value is being returned by the function. Then is used for starting the definition of that particular function. Similarly, starting the definition of the procedure, we are writing is keyword. Then after that, after is, if we have got any variables to be declared here, we can declare them before begin, and within the begin we can have any number of statements. Our logic can be written, but do remember, function will always return a value. Function will always return a value, whereas procedure will never return a value. The only difference between a procedure and a function is function will return a value, procedure will not return a value. Clear? The way in which both the codes work is the same, but function will never return a value. Function will return a value, procedure will never return a value. That's the only key difference between them. So if you wanted to write a block of code which should return a value back to its caller, then you will create a function. If you want a block of code which will display the result by itself, it will not return any value back to its caller, then you will create a block of code like a procedure. Okay, so how many blocks of codes are there? Anonymous block of codes, stored procedure or functions are there, applications or functions are there, application triggers are there, database triggers are there, packages or procedures are there. These are the various types of blocks which we can write. We'll try to see most of them one after the other. So first, anonymous block of code. Anonymous block of code are PLSQL program units. That unit comes without any name. That's why it is called as anonymous. Okay, and it is not saved in the Oracle database. This is another key point which you should remember. And once it has been written, it cannot be reused. That means it is only for one-time usage. The syntax is this one. You will have a declare section. Then in the declare, you will declare some variables. In the begin, you will try to write your logic execution part. Then if you have got any exceptions to be handled, you will write that exception mechanism. Then you will end your program. So I have clearly written what are the three sections and why do we use them. It will help you in your exams. Okay. Now variable declarations in PLSQL, variables can be declared either global or a local. Okay. And they can even be made as constants. For example, here is the syntax. The name of the variable. Then if you wanted to make it as a constant, you have to mention the keyword constant. I have kept it in square brackets. That means this keyword is optional. If you don't want a variable to be of constant nature, then you will not mention the constant keyword there. If you want the variable to be of constant nature, whose value should not change once initialized, then you will make it as a constant. You will write the keyword constant there. Okay, variable name, then either constant or not constant, then the data type. If you want that variable value should have some default value inside it, that variable should have some default value inside it, and it should not be null, then you will write the keyword not null. You will write the keyword not null. And if you wanted to initialize it to some value, then you will use assignment operator and you will specify some value here. But suppose if the value is not assigned, you want some default value should be there. Then you will use a keyword called as default and you will specify what default value should be used if there was no value assigned to it. For example, I am trying to read the location from the table into my PLSQL variable. Now imagine in the table, Oracle table, SQL table, the location value was not there. So what should be the default in that case? If the value is not there, it was not able to assign something, then what should be the default? Okay, getting my point? So this is the syntax for your variable declaration, full syntax, out of which the variable name and the data type is sufficient enough. If you want to have some particularities about the other things that I have mentioned, like making the variable as constant or making sure that the variable value is not null or giving some default value to that variable, then you have to follow that particular syntax. Now I have kept those things back again as examples for you, which you can easily go through and interpret. Here I have kept how to use the default also. Please go through it. There is one more program which I have kept here, which is going to show you some calculations with regard to arithmetic operations, plus and division. You can use that particular program also for representing anonymous block of code. Now, what are the rules for declaration of variables and initialization? Same rules follows as that were there for your variable identifier declarations that were there in your C and C++. Initialize variables designated as not null and constant. If you have declared a variable as not null and constant, then damn surely you have to initialize that variable at the time of declaration itself. You have to keep some initial value inside them. So what is initialization? I'm putting it in front of you. Is this name variable which I'm pointing right now? Is this declaration called as initialization of the variable name? Please answer it back in the chat box. Is the line name varchar2 of 25 with semicolon declaration or initialization? Correct, Sushmita. Yes, Pujita, you are correct. It's declaration. Is this pi or let us say counter? I am declaring counter variable as binary integer type with some default with some value as 0. Is this declaration or initialization? Initialization, because we are trying to keep some value at the time of declaration itself. When we try to assign some value at the time of declaration itself, it is called as initialization. So do remember, when you are making a variable as a constant or not null, at that time you should specify some value for it, some initial value for it. Without that, you cannot declare the variable as a constant or not null. So you can use some default keyword also while giving the value. So declare only one variable per line. There is no multiple variable declarations as that of your C, C++ and Java. Okay. Two variables can have the same name provided they are in different blocks. Provided they are in different blocks. Variable name should not be the same as the name of the table columns used in the blocks. This is again a condition. These conditions are on top of the rules that were there for the identifiers, the naming convention rules. Okay. Here again I have kept a particular program, anonymous block of code for calculating the circles, radius, diameter, area and circumferences. All those things are being calculated here. So you can practice this particular program. Here we have declared some variables, and here you can note that I have kept two hyphens and I have written something here. This line is single line comment. This line is single line comment. It was the same syntax which was used in your SQL also. In SQL you were having two types of comments. One was single line comment, second was multi-line comment. For multi-line comment, you will use forward slash asterisk. You will write multiple lines of comment and then you will close it with the asterisk and forward slash. But for single line comments, you will write two hyphens and then mention whatever comment you wanted to mention. Once that line of the comment is over, our comment will be finished. The next line will be treated for execution purpose. So now, what is the scope of the variables? Global and local. We have got two types of variables. These are local variables are declared within a block, within the inner block, and their validity is only within that particular inner block. Whereas global variables are declared in the outermost block package, and their visibility will be to all the blocks, outer block and the inner blocks, and if they are declared in a package, they are visible throughout the package inclusion. So here I have kept global variables, and then here again I am using local variables. So please do feel that our begin was the actual execution block, right? And it is starting here and ending here. But again, I wanted to include one more block inside it, inner block. So if I wanted to include an inner block, again I will have a declare section, begin section and an end. This is how you will include one block inside another block. Clear? So if you want to nest your block of codes, you'll keep the inner block of code within the execution section of your outer block, where you will keep the inner block of code within the execution section of the outer block of code. You should remember this thing. So here this number one, local variable number one, will be valid only within this block of code. Once this block of code is over with the end keyword, the number one, which was 195, will not be valid. But here again we have got number one whose value is 95, not 195. So after this end, suppose if I have got one more Rdbms underscore output dot put underscore line, after the inner end, if I have got again a Rdbms underscore put underscore line, and if I am trying to put the value of, let us say, number one, what will be the value displayed? 95 or 195? Quickly answer it back. 95, correct. Because this 195 has finished once this end has finished, inner block has finished. So in the outer block, what was the value of number 1? 95. So here, in order to interact with our Oracle database, why we are learning SQL? Because we wanted to have the programming concepts included into SQL part, right? So here I kept one table to be created called as custom with so and so column names, and I have tried to enter these values inside it. This program I have kept for your understanding sake only. Okay, for example, it is not mandatory. So here I have tried to create the variables pertaining to those column names by using the percentile type, and I have put some initial values inside them. Now I am using a select query, and I am trying to select them from customers, and I am trying to read this name into C underscore name, address into C underscore address, salary into C underscore salary from the customers table based on what was the customer ID initially set as 1. Whosoever customer ID is 1, try to read their names, address and salary into these variables and print it out. So here I have just shown you how do you interact with a particular table. Do practice this particular program. It will help you in your future. So what are the other operators which are available for your PLSQL? We have got arithmetic operators which are same as that of your C language and commonly used ones, but we have got one which is extra, which is exponential operator. These two asterisks are called as exponential operator. It's called as what? Exponential operator. So we have got all the relational operators coming back again, same as that of your SQL, but here this not equal to was there in your C language also, right? This not equal to can also be written as less than, greater than. If something is less than or greater than, that means it is not equal. Okay, so in order to show that something is not equal, you can use this operator also, but do remember there is no space in between them. Without any space, you have to write less than symbol and greater than symbol. It is equivalent to this not equal to. Similarly, we have got tilde and equal to sign representing not equal to. Single equal to will be used for comparison operator. There are no double equal to's here. The greater than, less than and greater than, equal to are all same as that of your C language. In case of our C SQL, we have learned the like, which was used whenever we wanted to have some pattern matching. Like for example, we wanted to have percentile and one single character represented with underscore. If you recollect back the SQL part, you can easily understand what do I mean by like. Similar to like if I wanted to say that X is between A and B, then I can say between as operator. If I wanted to say X is in some range of numbers, some given list of numbers, then I'll use X in this set of values that I wanted to have. I want to check whether this particular value is null or not. So I will write X is null. It will give me returns true or false. So there are various string functions which are available, which are coming from your SQL part itself. Like for example, if you want to create a substring, for example, I wanted to start at the third position and I want 2-character length string. Substring to be generated starting at the third character and it should be 2 characters length. So what is the third character? 1, 2, 3. Third character is what? L. From L, 2 characters wide. One is L, second is also L. So what will be the substring generated? LL. Upper, if you want to convert a string to upper, you will use upper of that particular string and it will convert it into that particular uppercase. Lower is very similar. You wanted to convert a particular string into lowercase, then you will use it. In cap, if you wanted to have the initialization of the words, first letter of the words, then you will use init cap. So if you pass hello world, then it will give you hello and world. Both the words written with their initial letters as capital. If you wanted to have some trimming of extra spaces on the left hand side of the string, then you can have that particular L trim. It will trim out the extra spaces that are there on the left hand side. If you wanted to remove the extra spaces on the right hand side, R trim. If you just say trim, it will remove both the sides extra spaces. If you wanted to have concatenation of both the strings, then you can have concat one. If you wanted to calculate length, you can have the length to be calculated using the length function. If you want to replace something by some other character, then you can specify what is to be replaced and by what it is to be replaced. So then we have got LPAD, RPAD, we have got what is a character, ASCII value of that particular character to be calculated. This soundx works with particular phonetic sound of a particular string character. Translate work if you wanted to translate hello into some format. Nationalized characters, all these things, these are not so important. So if you remember any 5 or 6 of them, that's enough. Okay. So those were the built-in string functions. Now built-in conversion functions. If you wanted to convert something into character format, like for example numeric 1, 2, 3, convert it into character format, then you will use this particular function. You want to convert one format of date into another format of date, then you will use toDate function. If you want to convert a string numeric string to a numeric number, then you will use toNumber. So if you want to have addition of months, what is assisted, truncate, roundabout, you have got months in between, all these functions are available. So I have just showed one example program here trying to use some string functions. You can easily go through those initial what string functions are going to work like. We have got some variable here called as L company name, and willingly I have written the Oracle in this particular pattern, Oracle Corporation, so that the upper, lower and init cap can be easily understood. Then I have included the multi-line comment in order to show that how the multi-line comments will work. So please go through this particular substring formations also. Here is one more practice program which you can go through and try to learn what is LPAD, RPAD and all those things. These programs are not must and should to be learned. They are not mandatory for exam, but I have kept it for your reference sake so that you can, if interested, you can go through them and understand how they work. Okay. So next coming on PLSQL records. As I said, A SQL table is composed of rows and columns, but a PLSQL table is composed of records. PLSQL table is composed of what? Records. A record is just similar to that of your structure in C language or C++. So, PLSQL record is a data structure that can hold data items of different kinds. Just like your structure was used for holding data items of different kinds, similar to that one, we have got record here. Records consist of different fields, similar to a row of a database table. Similar to a row of a database table. PLSQL can handle the following types of records. How many types of records are there? Table-based records, cursor-based records, and user-defined records. Table-based records, cursor-based records, and user-defined records. Just like we had percentile type for trying to copy the data type of a particular column of a particular table into our own PLSQL variable. Just like that, if I want to copy all the data types of all the columns for a particular row in a table, then I can copy those data types of all the columns of that particular table using the attribute called as percentile row type. So the percentile row type attribute enables the programmer to create table-based or cursor-based records. What is a cursor? We'll try to learn later on. It's not the pointer which I am moving. It's not the cursor which we are using for the mouse pad. Cursor over here is a pointer which is used by the Oracle server trying to signify what is the current row which is being accessed in the table. Okay. PLSQL provides a user-defined record type that allows you to define different record structures. What does PLSQL provides? It provides a user-defined record type which we can use to define our own structure for that particular part. Using that records, we can create our own table also, PLSQL table also. Okay, so records consist of different fields in simple term. So let us imagine there is a customers table and I want to create a particular pointer representing to that particular row. This pointer should contain, this record should contain all the variable columns data type as of this customers table. So if I would like to have all the columns data types to be copied from this customers table, I will first create a record, customer underscore record. This is my given name, ABC. Customers is the SQL table. Percentile row type is the attribute, signifying to the compiler that go for this table, check what are the data types used for the columns inside this table, create a record of the same data types. Okay. Now select star, and since all the columns have been copied, all the columns data types have been copied, I can select all the column values into this customer underscore record, what record we created from the customers table where ID is equal to 5. For the fifth ID customer, copy all the values of the columns into this particular record. And to print that values, we use customer underscore record, which is the record name, dot what was the first column, what was the second column, what was the third column, what was the fourth column. So you can mention the column names as it is. Okay. So here I have tried to create a cursor. Here I have tried to show you a record. How do you create a record? By using row type, depending on previously existing SQL table. Now here I am trying to create a cursor. So I am telling that cursor keyword Whenever the compiler sees this cursor keyword, it tries to create a cursor pointer. Cursor is nothing but a pointer. Name of the cursor, I'm keeping it as customer underscore cur. It is my own given name. Is, I'm starting the definition. Select ID comma name comma address from customers. I'm telling the compiler that point to the rows containing the values about ID, name and address of this customers table. So the cursor will be first initialized to the ID, name and address columns of the first row of the customers table. So as I go on reading the values from the cursor will point to the next rows in the table unless and until all the rows are finished. Once all the rows are finished, the cursor will reply back to the compiler that the rows have been finished and it stops execution. So till here, I have just created a cursor. So cursor is not a big thing. It's just a pointer pointing to a specific table. But this pointer is having the facility that it can point to some of the columns or it may point to all the columns also of a particular table. And it has got also a functionality, inbuilt functionality that it will first, at the time of initialization, at the time of creation, it will point to the first row of the table, which we have specified. And once the values in the first row are consumed, it will point to the next row of the table, then to the next row. Once they are consumed, then to the next row. Once they are consumed, then to the next row, till the end of the table. All the rows are consumed. Okay, once all the rows are consumed, it will stop its execution. So here I created a cursor. Now based on this cursor, I wanted to create a record. So how I am creating a record? Customer underscore record is my own given name. Customer underscore cur was the cursor which we created. Percentile row type. So whatever are the columns mentioned here will also be accessible for this record. Will also become the columns for this record. Okay. Now, for this cursor, in order to use it, we have to follow certain keywords, certain patterns. Actually, I have not introduced you to the cursor, but here I am trying to push you to the cursor's topic first, and then we will learn it later. So what we need to do is, once we have defined the cursor, we have to open it. We have to open the cursor by using a open keyword. Once we have opened, it will point to n number of rows, right? So I don't know how many rows are there in that table. So I will use a nameless loop. I will use a loop, anonymous loop. I am not specifying what is the condition here. When to stop iterative variable, I am not specifying. I am just saying loop. What to do in that loop? Fetch the cursor value into the cursor record. Whatever values are being pointed by the cursor is pointing to what columns? ID, name and address. Once it has been opened, it will point to the first row of the customer table. First row, to which columns it will point? To the ID, name and address. I am telling fetch whatever is being pointed by the cursor into the record. Okay, once it has been fetched, it has been consumed. Okay, now imagine that was only the row that was existing. When to exit? Exit when the cursor gives not found as true. Not found will return true when there are no rows left for again fetching. At the last row, this not found will be set as true. So I am telling exit when the cursor's not found becomes true. Okay. Now what to do after fetching it? Rdbms underscore output dot put underscore line customer record dot id, print that value, print a space, print the name. Okay. Then end loop. This end loop will again make it to go back for the loop, fetch the next row, check whether it is giving it as null or not, true or not found as true or not. If it is true, finish off with the loop, exit from the loop. Okay. Like this, it will keep on reading all the values from that particular table, customers table, and it will display it back on the screen. This program is meant for reading all the values from a particular SQL table using the cursors and records and displaying it back onto our command prompt. Okay? Imagine how easy it is to write a select statement, select star from customers. It will give the same thing. Or else here we are displaying the ID and name only. So I will write select star from select ID comma name from customers. And SQL command prompt is giving me that particular values, right? But in the background, this program was being run. So just imagine how easy the SQL has made our task as. Clear? So here I have kept one more program to create our own record. How do we create our own record? To create our own record, you have to use type, keyword, then what name you want to give for the type, and you will mention that this type is a record, and you will start mentioning what are the fields available inside it, field 1, field 2, field 3, along with the data types. Do you want it to be null or not null? Do you want some default values inside them or not? Okay. So in order to create your own record, the procedure is simple. You have to use a keyword called as type. You have to mention name of the type, is record are two keywords. Then you have to list within the parentheses what are the fields that you wanted to have inside it, along with the data types and the default values if they are going to have the default values. Once they are created, you can use them just like a normal data type. Here books is the record which we have created. Books is the record which we have created. So I am creating book 1 of books type, book 2 of books type. Here I have kept a program trying to use those type of things. This is just for your explanatory purpose, for your practice purpose. This program is not mandatory. Okay. So now PLSQL tables. PLSQL tables are composed of PLSQL records. A bunch of PLSQL records are called as PLSQL tables. Here, so PLSQL record structure it will be composed of multiple data fields. It may be a Boolean data field, it may be some data field, some name data field, or some binary object file data field. So a collection of records, 5-6 records or more than that, are called as PLSQL table. So what are PLSQL tables and what are their advantages? I have kept it here. Please go through that particular this slide. So how do we create a particular table? First, in order to create the table, you have to mention type, keyword, the name that you wanted to give for the table, and you have to mention is keyword along with table keyword. Then you have to mention of what data type you wanted to have it, and it should be indexed with what? Indexed by binary integer. So here you have created one single column type of thing. If you have got multiple columns, you will just separate them with commas, just like here. Now, from the next class, in the afternoon session, we are going to start with our decision making statements. They are very simple. They are very simple. I hope till here the points are clear for everyone. If you have any doubt, please raise it. I will be available here. Maybe we are left with 5-6 minutes more. Any doubts regarding the previous topics? Okay, then we'll be back at 12:20. So join back at 12:20.